From the real estate, interior design, and design and build experts at the Penzo Group comes a podcast that covers all things home. For our team, a home is so much more than the sum of its four walls. It goes beyond. A home is our sanctuary, a place to create memories, build routines, and shape our futures. Through a series of captivating conversations with guests who are industry experts in their fields, we discuss their lives, passions, and their most personal and intimate spaces, their homes. Welcome to Beyond Four Walls, where we explore the soul of living spaces and celebrate the essence of what makes a house a true home. Hello and welcome to another episode of Beyond Four Walls with the Penzo team. I'm Natasha Penzo, a broker with the team, and I'm thrilled to have the privilege to be here today with Chris Kapches, the CEO and president of Chestnut Park Real Estate. Chris is a lawyer with an extensive career working in real estate. He has served as the executive vice president for the Toronto Real Estate Board, as well as sitting on several TREB committees. Chris has also been the chairman of the Ontario Real Estate Council of Ontario's Discipline and Appeals Committee for 15 years. Today, Chris is the president and CEO of Chestnut Park and provides agents like myself and our valued clients with incredible support and immediate access to legal counsel and guidance. Welcome, Chris. We are so happy to have you here today. We wanted to start off the discussion by just hearing about how you got into the industry and your trajectory within the real estate industry.
Well, I actually worked as an articling student at a law firm downtown many, many years ago. And they were a law firm that specialized in condominium sales at a time when they were unique in the marketplace. A lot of people are not aware of this, but condominium apartments have not been with us forever. They only started in the 70s. Mm-hmm. In any event, that got me interested into real estate, and an opportunity came up when I actually worked for Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation as their in-house counsel for about 8 or 9 years. And I absolutely loved that experience. But for political reasons, the Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation no longer became involved in real estate the way it was up until then. Mm-hmm. An opportunity came up to run the Toronto Real Estate Board, which I did for a number of years, which I enjoyed, except not to the extent that I wanted to do it for the rest of my life, because there's a lot of bureaucracy, a lot of administration. Mm-hmm. Then I had an opportunity with Catherine Deleuze, who is a well-known name in the real estate industry, to work on creating Chestnut Park, which we did and loved every minute of it, working with the agents, working with the clients, and try to develop a model that would be something special in the resale real estate industry.
Very interesting. And were you with Chestnut Park from the founding stages of it, or
I was not.
Okay.
But when I did join, we only had about 8 or 9 agents.
Wow. So, and the Toronto office.
There was only the Toronto office at the time. And then it subsequently grew to other offices. Muskoka was the first one, then Collingwood, Prince Edward County, and then a bunch of other offices as time went on. So I wasn't there at the very beginning. That credit has to go to Catherine.
So 8 agents. Now Chestnut Park has just
over 400.
Wow, that's amazing.
In 30 years.
That is incredible. And we are so grateful for your valued advice and expertise on a day-to-day basis. So just wanted to ask, what does a typical day for you look like?
I'm gonna answer that by giving you a metaphor, if I may. A typical day for me is like a ship's captain, who has a ship that's full of perishable goods that he has to get from port A to port B every single day.
Yes.
He can't not get the ship to port B, even if there are pirates out there, even if there are hurricanes, even if there are inclement weather, icebergs. The ship has to get to port B.
Right.
So sometimes you have to maneuver it. Sometimes it goes straight, but it has to get to port B. So some days I'm like a captain sailing a ship on a beautiful sunny day.
Love that.
Other days, I'm like a captain sailing a ship on a miserable day.
Yeah.
But I try and work the ship to the port B. So it really depends on what transpires during the course of the day.
That's a really interesting metaphor. And I think because you truly are working with entrepreneurs that are part of a larger community of collaboration.
Correct.
And there's, being in self-employed and an entrepreneur, you really are trying to get from point A to point B with obstacles along the way.
That is correct. In effect, a brokerage like Chestnut Park is, as I mentioned a moment ago, more than 400 agents, 400 independent profit centers. And each one of those profit centers has to be managed. And that's why on a given day, you could have beautiful, sunny sailing weather, but each one of those profit centers may have issues which have to be resolved. And therefore, you don't have a sunny day, but you still have to get the boat to port B.
And just hearing that and hearing that, you've been, involved in this great brand since almost the very beginning. But how have you seen the industry change along the way? What are some of the more prominent changes that you've seen?
That's a very good question, actually. It's a good question because the industry has changed for the better and unfortunately for the worse.
Okay.
On the better side, I think what has happened, and I'm perhaps speaking very sort of firm-centrically when I talk about this because of Chestnut Park, but professionalism has increased over that period of time. I didn't find the industry as professional back in the day when Chestnut Park was first started, but certainly we here at Chestnut Park have worked really hard on providing a high level of professionalism for the agents so that they in turn can provide that and that level of service to their clients. Unfortunately, the downside is that so many people have come into the business over that period of time. And I'd like to think that everyone tried to do what Chestnut Park did, but I don't really see that out there. And so in some areas, the level of professionalism has changed very dramatically. And then the overriding change, of course, has been the introduction of technology to the industry. There was a time where everything that we did was on paper. That's no longer the case anymore.
Yes.
And to some extent, there's a bit of a downside in that regard because the interpersonal component, if you allow it, can disappear. And we have to be very cautious of that. And that's why we stress the professionalism, the interpersonal connection with the clients at Chestnut Park to ensure that that isn't lost. But I don't think that's universal in the industry.
Yeah, it's truly all about the human connection at the end of the day.
Correct.
For us, it was no question the brand, its value proposition, the integrity of the company was where we wanted to be, no doubt. And how do you see the market evolving? Maybe particularly in the city of Toronto, because that is primarily where we operate.
That, you might say, is the million-dollar question right now. Everyone is a little confused about the market. They're confused for a variety of reasons because we've come out of a market sequence like we have never witnessed before. What I mean by that, Natasha, is that we were in a kind of a normal market up until the end of 2019, and then COVID hit. And then COVID completely killed the market for a very short period of time. And then within 3 or 4 months,
it was irrational exuberance.
Unbelievable.
Yes.
And we saw it not only in a metropolitan area like Toronto, but we saw it in the what I would call, say, the secondary markets. And that's not a pejorative expression, but outside of the city of Toronto, and it just exploded. And then all of a sudden, we have inflation. Bank of Canada starts increasing its benchmark rate, and the market dies. And now we're trying to adjust to this new world of expectations on the part of sellers, expectations on the part of buyers. And then, of course, the bank is controlling all of that by its decision to raise rates or its decision to lower rates. And we're now all hoping for rates to come down. The overriding problem with all of that has been population growth. So in addition to all of those strange factors that have taken place in real estate, we've had probably within that period of time, maybe 2 million people that have made their way into Canada, and lots of them within the GTA, putting huge amounts of demand pressure on the housing supply. And so these forces are competing against each other in a way that we've never seen before. I've been doing this, pointed out, for a very long period of time, but these are all brand new. There's been no blueprint for determining what this is all about and where it's going. But I think as time goes on, we're going to see more supply get into the market. But this is not an overnight thing. This is going to take some time. More supply coming into the market. Inflation will come down. We'll see the bank rate come down. And we'll start to get close to a normalized market, whatever a normalized market is. When you have your average sale price at in excess of $1.1 million, that's not a normal market when you think of what household incomes are.
Right.
There's so many conflicting factors out there, Natasha, that it's very difficult to, with any kind of accuracy, and I don't even want to use the term, but I will predict how the market is going to unfold.
Do you think, I mean, with COVID being such a black swan, I feel like when people get hit with a stay-at-home order for a significant amount of time, that can definitely influence how they just view their home long term.
No question.
Yeah,
No
so
question.
that maybe also has
No question.
something to do with like the unpredictability of.
I think, though, even though psychologically you're right, I think the more important factor is the financial costs. And what's happening now is we have, I don't remember the exact number, but it's a high number, over 60, 70% of all mortgages, fixed term mortgages, will be coming up for renewal within the next 2 years.
Yes.
So sellers are having to look at that and look at what they're going to be coping with in the future, and perhaps some of them who are overextended are putting properties on the market now, because we are seeing a flow of listings coming on the market. Buyers, I think, are waiting to see what happens with interest rates. So we've got this push-pull between buyer expectations, seller expectations, that is making any predictability very, very difficult.
And what do you think really sets Chestnut Park apart in terms of its brand and value proposition and how it can service the marketplace?
Well, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, we've concentrated on professionalism, because and we do work primarily the upper end of the marketplace. So you're dealing with sophisticated buyers and sellers. You're dealing with properties that are in the multi-million-dollar range. You have to be sophisticated to deal with those situations that require market intelligence, market sophistication, to be able to service your clients. And that's what we have stressed. And I think that distinguishes us from the rest of the marketplace, particularly, as I mentioned earlier, with so many people coming into the market, perhaps not getting the appropriate training, the appropriate mentorship that they need. In some cases, that level of sophistication has declined. We have tried to distinguish ourselves by providing that level of sophistication and professionalism.
I completely agree. And Chris, there are a lot of young people who are, becoming agents, or even people who have like made a career shift after their kids have grown up, or they just need a career change. What advice would you maybe give them? Like Chestnut Park has such great training and professionals that they can go to, but is there any advice you might give them when they're just starting out?
Well, the first bit of advice would be that the industry is a difficult industry. I think there's a perception out there that it isn't, and particularly coming through COVID.
Yes.
Because average sale prices went up, commissions, earnings were based as a percentage of the sale price. So people did make a considerable amount of money during COVID, but that isn't a normal market. A normal market is one of a lot of hard work and being able to service your clients. And there's a lot of people out there in the industry. As we mentioned, in Ontario alone, there's over 100,000 agents. In the GTA, almost 80,000 agents. So it's a competitive world. So I would say be prepared for a competitive environment.
Mhm.
But if you do all the right stuff, you work hard, you become knowledgeable, you become sophisticated,
Mhm.
you use all the various platforms, especially now the social media platforms, you will succeed. But it's hard work. It isn't just something that'll fall into your lap and you'll be immediately successful.
Yeah, you're completely right about that. I wanted to ask what advice you might give sellers and buyers in today's market,
That I can answer, I think.
especially when it comes to
That I think I
expectations.
can answer. Starting with buyers, in
Mhm.
my view, if I were out there and I were a buyer, I'd be buying as quickly as I possibly could.
Okay.
There's quite a bit of inventory coming to the market.
Mhm.
Um, Buyers, however, are hesitant right now in
Mhm.
buying as we speak, which is in late May.
Mhm.
We're actually seeing the market drift down a little bit.
Okay.
And I think that's because buyers are not participating. The
Mhm.
reason they're not participating is they're assuming that we're going to get a bank rate cut in
Mhm.
June. And if not in June, or June maybe and July, we
Mhm.
will see some improvement in that regard. But that is not going to change the world for them. In
Mhm.
fact, if anything, it'll probably cause prices to go up.
Right.
So if I were a buyer, my advice would
Just
be
get in.
get it done now
Mhm.
if you're intent on buying.
Mhm.
If you're a seller, you're in a much more difficult situation. What I would do, again, if I were a seller and I were advising a seller, I would say be very realistic in your pricing
Mhm.
because what we're seeing with the increase in inventory,
Mhm.
buyers have more choice.
Mhm.
They're, as I just said, hesitant to buy. But if something appears reasonably priced, consistent with the market, not some expectation that is so lofty that's not likely to be met, your property will sell and you'll get a relatively good price for it.
Mhm.
But you might not get that price that was your COVID price that
Mhm.
a lot of people are still in their minds
Yeah, it
hoping
really
to
did
achieve.
throw expectations
That
quite
is
out
correct.
of whack.
That is correct.
So just, be patient, trust the
And trust your
professionals.
professional.
Yeah, trust your
Yeah.
valued real
Trust your
estate professional
your
and
advisor.
knowing that they're going to do
Yeah.
the best job for you.
Yeah. And if you're at Chestnut Park, you will have a trusted advisor
Mhm.
who will be able to guide you through this
Mhm.
very, very complicated marketplace.
Mhm.
As I mentioned earlier, I've been doing this for a long time.
Mhm.
This is the most complicated marketplace that I've ever engaged
Wow.
in all the years that there have been bad markets, but we understood them.
Mhm. Yeah.
This is just a complicated market that you can't completely
Yeah.
understand.
And are you seeing this across the board also with auxiliary markets? Because we have, Chestnut Park has offices in a lot of different locations, particularly.
Some different issues out
Okay.
there. Again, they're COVID driven. A lot of people wanted to get out of the city,
Mhm.
particularly now with, as we mentioned earlier, technology.
Mhm.
People can work from home.
Right.
So it was an opportunity with what was happening in the city,
Mhm.
more congested. People didn't feel safe
Mhm.
to get out of the city. And on top of that, prices in the surrounding marketplaces were substantially less than when they were in the city.
Yeah.
So we saw an explosion in all the
People
marketplaces
moving to
that were in.
Collingwood.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Collingwood, Huntsville, Bracebridge, Gravenhurst,
Mhm.
out in Prince Edward County.
Mhm.
As time has gone on, and to use a cliche, the kind of bloom has come off that rose. There's not as much to do out there
Mhm.
culturally, from entertainment,
Mhm.
variety of things that we
Right.
take for granted in a big metropolitan place like
Yes.
Toronto. And we're starting to see people head back into Toronto, which
Mhm.
is again adding pressure to the Toronto marketplace. And those markets have softened.
Mhm.
We're just starting to see them normalize, to use
Right.
that term again, and get back to where they were pre-COVID, which is good to see. But
Yes.
they're turbulent marketplaces right now. Not so much in Muskoka,
Right.
especially on the big lakes, because that price point doesn't seem to affect people the same way as purchases made out of necessity. Those are all discretionary purchases up there.
Mhm.
And as a result, that market hasn't changed to the extent that we have seen in other secondary markets.
Yes. So, Chris, where do you see the future of real estate?
I see real estate changing fairly dramatically as we go forward. Um, particularly with the introduction of AI technology in our industry. Already, people are using it. Agents are using it. I think one has to be careful that it doesn't become a crutch, because then you get away from some of the things that we were talking about earlier. Your professionalism. You still have to be a professional and provide the consummate services to the client. And the concern, not only in the real estate industry, but in other industries, is that AI might be doing the work for you, and we can't have that happening. We still have to have the agent servicing the consumer, the client. And that's a concern that I have about where the future of real estate is going. But if it's used well, it can enhance your ability to provide services to the client, and can enhance your ability to help them achieve their goals, whether it's selling their property or buying a property in the most effective possible way.
And I think also when you're working with the luxury consumer, the expectation is like the touch points and the human connection. Like, you just cannot replace that. So completely agree with that. And wanted to thank you for taking the time today. It's been such a pleasure.
Likewise.
And for where you can find Chestnut Park, it's www.chestnutpark.com.
That's correct.
On Instagram, Facebook, all social media platforms.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you, Natasha.
Thank you.